Hi, Cecilia.
Hi Theresa, how are you?
I'm good. I'm chill. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm really good, thank you. I'm excited to chat.
Yeah. Okay, so as you know, my name's Theresa Lola and this is Cecilia Knapp. I'm the 2019-2020 Young People's Laureate for London, and I'm thrilled to be handing over the role to Cecilia Knapp, who will be taking over as Young People's Laureate for London. Cecilia is a poet, a tutor, a playwright, a novelist. She's jack of all trades, and I'm so excited for everything that she's going to do. So, Cecilia, first thing I want to ask, since we're going to be in conversation talking about the role and all things, um, one of the things about the Young People's Laureate for London role is a possibility to try different things. So what are you most excited to do, to explore, expand on in your new role?
Yes, that's one of the things that's really attractive about the role is this kind of freedom to sort of design your own residencies over the year. And I think that's really exciting. And it's also a way to make poetry super accessible to different groups of people. So I'm really looking forward to, I want to collaborate with filmmakers and create films. I also really want to work with groups that you wouldn't necessarily think, this group and poetry. So like I'm looking into working with some like grassroots football teams. I'm also looking to collaborate with galleries using kind of photography and visual art to inspire poetry and to create a conversation between those different art forms. So it's super exciting because hopefully it will ensure that poetry has an even wider reach, because not only are you engaging with people that already have kind of a relationship with poetry in some way, but also you're accessing those different groups that you're collaborating with in order to kind of spread the poetry out there too. So yeah, it's really exciting. And I really want to look at this idea this year of kind of saying what you want to say, how you want to say it, kind of on your terms, basically. I think a lot of the time young people get spoken for or spoken about. And I think the focus that I really want to look at as Laureate is kind of less of that and more about kind of empowering and helping young people to say whatever they want to say on their own terms. So that could be experiences that they've lived through and challenges and their journeys, but it could also be stuff about their joy and what brings them happiness, you know. So yeah, I want to kind of look at those stories and hear those voices.
Yeah, interesting. So what does it mean having the role in the time of a pandemic? We can't ignore that.
I
We're
know.
literally, yeah, in the middle of it. And so a lot of, I mean, when I got the role, a lot of it was about physical residencies, about going into schools, a lot of these things. And
Yeah.
right now things are kind of up in the air, so I want to know, what is it like getting the role during this period?
Well, it's weird because when I got the role, we'd already done like 6 months of adjusting to the pandemic in terms of working. So like, for example, my interview was online via Zoom. My initial meetings around kind of what we're going to do for this year was on Zoom. I had a photo shoot, but that was face to face, but it was very socially distanced. You know, it's all, so I kind of feel like this is the new normal now, and we're just going to adjust and adapt accordingly. Um, it's a shame, I think, that some face-to-face work might not be able to happen. I mean, I don't know what it's going to look like, and the majority of stuff might have to be online, and there is a certain amount of kind of limitation that online working brings with it in terms of like being able to engage with people on a face-to-face level, but also there are massive upsides as well. I mean, it can be really inclusive working online for people that might not have necessarily been able to reach the workshop or reach the location that you're working in. And I guess we're just going to have to kind of capitalize on that and enjoy those benefits, whilst also kind of adapting. And like, you know, I want to work a lot with film, and that's obviously great because that's something that can be shared like really widely online. It's something that doesn't rely on like face-to-face performance. So we'll adapt, we'll do it, we'll figure it out, and we'll make it a good year regardless.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like that's what we do as human beings. We just adapt to whatever new thing comes.
Yeah, and particularly like in the arts sector, like I mean, when the pandemic first hit, I was like, oh my God, what's everyone going to do? But I've seen so much resourcefulness and resilience from so many people, just like dealing with the fact that we can't see each other and we can't be in the same spaces. You know, a lot of people have done some really innovative things. So hopefully we can take that energy with us.
Yeah.
Should I ask you a question now?
Yeah, sure.
So you've just had a year of being laureate. What attracted you to being Young People's Laureate in the first place? Like, why did you do it?
I think the first thing is the actual purpose of the role. I just thought it was so important, and the way it was focused on improving and just changing the way young people engage with poetry. So that was kind of like the first thing. It was about young people. And the second thing was the versatility of the role. And you talked about the creative freedom you have in the role, and that definitely attracted me to the role. So seeing what the previous laureates had done. So Caleb Femi worked a lot with film. He was one of the judges on the Premier League poetry competition. Mumtaza worked a lot with cross arts as well, and she did the Be My Next Inspiration campaign. And I just found that very interesting, the different ways in which you could use poetry. And so I was thinking about ways you could engage with young people, not just physically, but digitally, just thinking about the different ways young people meet poetry, because there's no one set way that you find poetry or use poetry. And just seeing that versatility that the role definitely offered, that was something that I was like, yeah, this is what I want to do.
Yeah. How did you get into poetry when you were younger? Was it somebody coming and like showing you a poem or doing a workshop or something?
Interesting. I didn't get that. So I think honestly, those who do have that, who do get that, who do have the laureate come in to teach them, are very fortunate, because some of us didn't have that in schools. I definitely didn't.
Yeah.
It was actually a trip. I'd been writing already. I loved reading and writing, but it was a trip to a poetry festival that an English teacher encouraged me to go to. That was what set it off. Like, that poetry was something I wanted to do.
Everyone's always got that one English teacher. I swear, every poet has always had one English teacher that like really encourages them and kind of sees outside of like the limitations of the curriculum, because a lot of the time you're not doing much poetry at school, as you say, which is one of the reasons why this role is so important, I think, to kind of demystify poetry and make it, as you say, accessible to young people.
Yeah.
I had a really amazing English teacher too, and he was just inspiring. I know it's a bit of cliche to say it, but he was inspiring. He made people feel like literature and poetry was not just something to be studied, but something that is there for them as well,
Yeah, and I would definitely say, just quickly add to that, to let your teachers know when they've inspired you. Even with, I don't know if you've had that, but I've had people, message me and say, oh, I loved being in your class, and this is what I benefited from it. And it's important that we also do that for our teachers. So, like, I actually went back to Nigeria and I went to visit my teacher in school, and she was still there, and I got to tell her, like, this is what you did for me. And it was such a moment. I was like, so,
Oh my
yeah.
gosh, that is such a moment.
Yeah. So one of the things in the role is you get to write a lot of commissions, and different kinds. You have ones that are definitely in your interest, but you probably get some very random requests. But what I love about your poetry specifically is your ability to write about daunting topics and still be able to insert some sort of humor, and the vivid way in which you place your poems. There's location in your poem, and it transports the reader to kind of the specific place that you're trying to take us to. So I wanted to know, just in terms of your writing process, how do you approach your poems?
That's such an interesting question, and thank you for saying nice things about my poems. I guess I don't really have like one set process. Like, to be honest, a lot of it is quite is kind of about trying to let go a bit and trying trying to kind of almost let the poem come to me. That sounds pretentious, doesn't it? But I do a lot of writing on my notes on my phone. I do a lot of kind of free writing where I'm just doing like a stream of consciousness, and occasionally something really good will come out of that. There's like going into that kind of stream of consciousness state somehow disconnects you from your kind of your rigidities and your restrictions that you put upon yourself in your day-to-day life, and sometimes you can find some real gold there. But more and more at the moment, I'm trying to not be harsh internally and not be critical, and actually enjoy the process of writing.
You've got a little friend over there. I was like, what is that in the corner of the screen?
Not now.
Happened to someone recently. I can't remember who, but I saw a video on Twitter. But yeah.
He's really distracted me now. Yeah, more and more I'm trying to enjoy the process of writing and have fun with it, because I'm like, if I'm not having fun when I'm doing this, what's the point? You know, the craft and that will come into it, of course, like editing and you know, strengthening your poem is a whole other ball game, and that can be quite like grueling and serious or whatever. But if I'm not having fun in the initial like draft stages of writing a poem, if I don't get that little feeling of thrill, like I'm taking a little risk or I'm saying something a little bit that makes me feel a little bit alive, then what's the point, you know? So go away, Ginge. So I'm trying to have a bit more fun, basically. I'm trying to inject a bit of, like you say, I'm trying to inject a little bit of humor into things, because I feel like sometimes that can even give a subject that is a bit weighty, like even more humanness, do you know what I mean? Because life's like that. It's complicated. It's one side it's hilarious and tragic, the other side it's devastating. Like, do you know what I mean? So yeah, I'm basically writing a load of random stuff on my phone notes, pulling it together and trying to have a fun time with it, and then edit it and show it to people. I think like the myth about writing is that it's like a solitary process. It's not. It is solitary when you're tapping away an idea initially, but some of the poems that I've been working on lately, I've shown them to 5, 6, 7 different people. Different drafts. They evolve like so much along the way. So
wow, that's fascinating. I would love to hear one of your poems, if you don't mind reading it for us.
Okay, let's hope the cat doesn't interrupt. Do you like this one? You like this one, don't you? Okay, so this is a poem that I finished recently, and it's called "All My Ex-Boyfriends Are Having a Dinner Party."
Amazing.
All my ex-boyfriends are having a dinner party, comparing their tight obliques, how red their meat, hat tricks for their grassroots teams, wearing expensive suits, saying they once had me in a car, how I can never keep my mouth shut, I always wanted to stay the night. I'm dieting again, sipping low-cal miso, burning my hands on a moving train. I smile at other joggers like I'm enjoying this. The dentist says I have yellow teeth, his hands holding my tongue. Mum said there is nothing you can't do so long as you're wearing washing up gloves. A purple leaflet in the waiting room asks me if life has worked out A, better, B, worse, or C, the same. For £1,000 I can fix my teeth. Mum used to ballroom dance with a wooden spoon, weeping along with the radio. I've been keeping my fallen eyelashes in a bag. I spit pink foam into the sink. Decide this week I'll only eat eggs until the days smudge. Pain is a man in a blue suit. I see people eating crisps in public on Monday like they have no guilt.
Wow. What a poem. I think it was published on the White Review. I think
yeah.
The review. Yeah. And there's just so many lines in there that I love. The one about the purple leaflet asking if life has worked out okay or something like that.
Yeah.
And the other line about I keep my fallen eyelashes in, I don't know if it was in my bag or in my Yeah, and just that image itself, just like holding on to something that you might not be able to fix back, just yeah, it was brilliant. Thank you very much. So yeah, I saw that you recently got Arts Council funding to yeah, run a couple of, well, you're not running all the workshops, but it's for a project called C's Weekly Poetry Workshops.
Yeah.
Which I love that title. So it's a series of online poetry workshops, and I know that you've taught extensively in the past. So I just wanted to know what led you to not only become a writer but a tutor as well.
I think it was a little bit like what we talked about earlier, which was I wouldn't be writing now and I wouldn't be a poet or I wouldn't have written a book or anything if I hadn't had somebody help me to do that and to make me feel like it was something I could do. So I had a really great English teacher at school, but I also joined the Roundhouse Poetry Collective when I was 18, so 10 years ago now. And I joined it thinking it was like an acting class, but it turned out to be a poetry course for a year with Polar Bear, the writer, also known as Stephen Camden. And it was just completely like blasted apart any notion that I couldn't do it. Do you know what I mean? It was basically someone telling a group of 6 kind of young writers, writing is here for you if you want it, and you can write about whatever you want in your own way, you know. And it helped me massively. I mean, it gave me so much confidence. It helped me figure out what was going on in my head. It basically led to like this moment right now that we're talking about. So I imagine that there are so many young people who think that poetry is not for them because it's not widely talked about, and who might benefit from doing creative writing themselves. I'm not saying that every single young person that I go and work with is suddenly going to become a poet, but I am saying that I think everyone can, and everyone can enjoy the benefits of it. And I think it should be kind of an equal playing field. I think everybody should be able to access it regardless of where you come from. Unfortunately, like that's not necessarily the case at the moment. Some schools aren't able to do very much poetry. Some are and have like poetry clubs and stuff and make it really accessible. So I think it's about kind of making poetry more available to people. And also I think being a teacher, a poetry teacher, or running poetry workshops ultimately helps your craft as well. It helps you to understand your practice. You read more widely, you plan, if you're really excited about poetry, then you're excited about running a poetry workshop because you get to read loads of poems and find good poems that you can use as a stimulus, and you break them down and look at the kind of architecture of them and share that energy and that share that with the students that you're working with. And there's something really amazing about working with someone that thinks they've got nothing to say and that they don't know how to write a poem, and then by the end of it they've put their story into words, and it's just amazing. There's nothing like it.
Yeah. Okay, I've just got one more question to ask you, so I don't know if there's anything you want to kind of ask me before we get to that question.
Yeah, tell me about, so obviously I'm going to be running the campaign that we spoke a little bit about earlier, and I'm going to be doing some residencies. Tell me a little bit about the campaign that you ran over your year as Laureate.
So did 2 campaigns during my tenure. The first was in August 2019, and it was called My Mental Health Journey, and it was a hashtag, and it was with Spread the Word and Bureau agency, and it was supported by Young Minds Charity, which is a mental health charity for young people. And the campaign was really about getting young people to use the hashtag to talk about to write a poem about their mental health journey. So it could be a quote, it could be a longer poem, and it was really about spreading positivity. So just hearing stories about people who have overcome, periods of periods that were challenging, or just people just talking about their journey and just showing that, this isn't a kind of everyday fight and an everyday movement. And so we had people share poems on Twitter, on Instagram, and also they got to submit anonymously as well if they weren't comfortable sharing it. And then we had a sharing event at the Laureate, the Royal Academy. And so some of the poets who had submitted their poems got to share their work. And for some, it was their first time ever performing, which was, it was amazing, because it's one thing, it's brave enough to read your poem, and then to read a poem about something so personal and mental health, that was just, yeah, that was a proud moment. And the second campaign was recent. It was in April this year, April 2020. And it was right after the pandemic started. And it was the Say Your Peace campaign, PACE, not the other piece.
Mm.
And it was just about getting young people to say their piece about what life in during the pandemic was like, or
Mm.
what life during lockdown, specifically the first lockdown, was like. And we did the campaign because at the time there was so much uncertainty and so much anxiety driven news, which is still going on.
Mm.
But it was just all about our fears, and obviously toilet paper was kind of like disappearing in the shops. And so for how can we find a way to get people to still write poetry, but just kind of insert the power of poetry, which is to write about what is going on, but kind of imagine new worlds, imagine the good that can still come out of all of this. And so that was what that campaign was about. And yeah, so we had that on social media as well. And that kind of ended with we had the poems published online. So I think the poems are still available to read. And that ended with a 3-part poetry film with the previous laureate, so Mumtaza, Caleb, and I. And yeah, those were the two kind of different ones, but still blended into each other some ways.
Amazing. Did you have a poem that you want to share from your year? One of the commissions that you wrote, maybe?
Yeah, so this one was more specifically, so, you know, during the tenure, as I mentioned, you get to write different commissions. But this particular poem that I'll read is the one that I wrote for the Say Your Peace campaign. So I thought, you know, rather than just asking everyone to write a poem, I might as well write one as well. You know, when you get to a workshop and everyone's writing their poem and you're just sitting there watching. Yeah, so I thought, do you know what, let me actually write a poem to this. So this is Let Us Play Scrabble Again. And I wrote this poem thinking about what are the things that I was doing in this time, or we're doing in this time, that's bringing us peace. That was kind of like the whole point of the campaign. And I thought at the time when it happened, my family and I were playing a lot of board games. And so we played Scrabble, and I thought, oh, let's play Scrabble again. Let us play Scrabble again. The Scrabble board is a neatly cut cape. We touch the hem of its board and feel a strength return to us like a prodigal child. My mother smiles for the first time this week. My father brings home the sun in his palms. My sister cleaves from the sticky skin of her phone. I find tranquility thick as a towel cover me. The Scrabble board transforms into whatever is required by the bodies around it. Sometimes the Scrabble board is a plate we eat from, our mouths swallowing conversations peacefully since the breaking news starved us of an appetite. Sometimes the Scrabble board is a classroom board. We learn life is a continuous anagram. We learn to form meaning out of nothing. We learn it is a conscious effort to be linked by words, by language, by love. Yeah.
Mm. I love that. Having that kind of central image of the Scrabble board as a catalyst for all of that stuff is beautiful. And that line about some days your father brings the sun home in his palms, that's so beautiful. I love that.
Thank you.
What advice would you give me as the new Young People's Laureate for London?
Oh gosh, that's a huge a huge question. I feel like I'm still learning every day, but I think a bunch of different things. The first, which I think you're already like figuring out, is to have fun and take risks. Like do what would, yeah, I mean, this role is centered on young people, but also use it as an opportunity to do what you haven't done before. You know, to try different things, new ways of using poetry. And I know you mentioned collaborations with filmmakers as well. So just trying something different. And by trying something different, I also mean, you know, with the role, you're going to be called on things that are not always poetry specific. You're going to be called to write on different themes, and so just being open about that, you know, taking on new things. And I'll also say, like, making sure to take care of yourself, because, you know, with the role, you're doing a lot of giving, and just to remember to keep your passion for poetry alive, because that's ultimately what it's about. It's all about the poetry, and you have to make sure that you stay in love with poetry, as intense as that sounds, but you have to continue loving it, because if you continue loving poetry, you continue loving your time in the role. That's probably what I'd say.
That is
Yeah.
good advice. I think that's really good. I've got one more question to ask you, just because I really want to know as well. Now you're handing over to me, what's next for you in your poetry career?
Oh gosh. For me, I'm just gonna sleep. No, I'm joking. Now for me, right now I've been writing. I've been writing a lot. So yeah, working towards my next book. So yeah, I'm currently writing towards that. And I think that's kind of the main thing I'm doing. I just got. I don't know if I can even talk about it, but yeah, just there's a poetry program that I'm going to be a part of. So I'm program manager for that. So I think that that'll probably start end of this year. And yeah, that's kind of the main thing. And I've got study, you know, probably focus on uni as well.
Mm.
And that's pretty much it, which is kind of coded, but we'll see what that means.
That's still a lot as well.
Let's
Writing
see.
is a lot, isn't it?
It is, and it's nice because I was writing, you know, during my tenure, but it's now that I kind of have some sort of clarity over what I want to do. Because it's one thing to write, but it's one thing to know what you're writing towards,
Yeah.
you know, and I'm kind of getting to that point. Yeah, so kind of reached the end of this, but I would like to ask you one question. I hope it doesn't sound too big, but why do you think poetry is important for young people today?
I mean, I think that it's such a remarkable tool to have. Um, I think that writing has a profound impact on people. There's a process that happens between their head and the page or the phone or the computer, whatever you're writing on,
Mm,
sort of reconciliation or figuring out. And I think it's a way to confront and to understand your life. And so I think it's an amazing tool for young people to have. But I also think that it's important for, like I mentioned earlier, I think it's important for young people to be writing what they want to write, how they want to write it, rather than being spoken about or spoken on behalf of, which a lot of people do. They sort of bring young people in, but in these kind of like tokenistic ways.
yeah.
Or, you know, at worst, young people get spoken about in the media or um, in negative ways. And I think, you know, there's so many amazing young people in this city. There's so many different stories to tell that using poetry not only is a great kind of tool for them themselves personally, but it's also an amazing tool to show so many different people, you know. So I think it's massively important.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Cecilia, for your time. And I'm very excited. All the best for your tenure.